today by thanking Hometown Heroes for hosting us. It's a great business. We're going to try to focus today on local issues. In an age of 24-hour scandals and intrigue, it's really hard sometimes to focus on local issues that matter. We've got situations with our roads where they're crumbling, our schools are underfunded, our cities are underfunded, and we've got real work that needs to be done. And these are the people who are actually getting to work and getting it done. So we've asked them here today to answer some questions about doing stuff like getting people back to work at jobs that pay a livable wage. We can't afford to be distracted by racist walls thousands of miles away. We have to focus on these local issues. We're going to start today by giving each one of our guests a few minutes to introduce themselves. After opening statements, we're going to go ahead and go through questions. The way we're going to run this is if you have a question, you can raise your hand. We're going to have a volunteer who goes around and hands out forms for you to fill out the questions. We're going to turn those back in. Some of the questions will be asked by our moderators. Some of the questions will be asked by members of the audience. The way that'll work is we'll call your name, we'll ask you to come up, we'll ask a question in the interim, and then after that question is answered, we'll give you an opportunity to ask your question. But please keep the answers short so that we can focus on the answers as opposed to having long questions. The issues are really what matters. With that, we want to focus on local issues, but a local issue can also be a federal issue, and that's why we've asked our congressman to be here today. We're going to go ahead and get started. Our first speaker today is not one of our panelists, but we're going to invite Macomb County Clerk Fred Miller to come on up and tell us about some events that he's got coming up here in southern Macomb County.
Yes. Good afternoon, Democrats. It's great to see such a great turnout, and thank you, Hometown Heroes, for hosting us here for this great turnout. Thanks for your support. Because of the kindness and the hard work of many people in this room, I have the great honor of serving as our Macomb County Clerk, and understanding the way the Democrats do that, we got to sometimes bring services away from our offices in Mount Clemens and bring them to where the people are who need them most. And we recognize that public transportation and transportation in general can really be a barrier for services. So to that point, we're restarting an old tradition of former Clerk Sabos to have the mobile office, which would bring Macomb County Clerk and Register of Deeds services here to the south end. We're going to be at the Warren Public Library, Dorothy Bush branch at Ryan and 9 Mile on Thursday, April 18th. I have some flyers over there. That's for any of the business that you need. If you need property records, birth records, death records, CPL renewal, and a whole host of other clerk services for you. So if you could help me get the word out about it. And again, great turnout. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I'm going to invite our new congressman. His family's been serving this area for decades, and he's just begun his service as a congressman. And he's doing a great job. Andy Levin.
Thank you, Jeremy. Let's hear it for Jeremy Fisher in the Warren area down. I'm fresh off the plane, literally from Washington, and just to be able to come home and come here, this is just what a dream for, a new member of Congress. So this is great. I want to give you sort of the news of the moment, and then I really want to focus on the kind of lunch bucket issues that Jeremy was talking about. Today, the United States Senate followed us in the House and voted 59 to 41, including 12 Republicans, to tell Donald Trump we're not accepting his phony emergency. Now he'll veto that, but it's still really, really important. Today in the House, we voted something like 420 to nothing to demand that the administration make the Mueller report public when it comes out. I was really happy how bipartisan that was, and we're going to continue to push for sunshine on what happened in 2016 and keep fighting against interference in our elections. All right, more generally, I went to Congress to fight for the working class. I was really honored to get a spot on the Education and Labor Committee and to be elected by the 28 Democrats on the committee as the vice chair of the committee. The first thing that I think the very first bill I put in was something called a Congressional Review Act. It's a kind of law that we can pass to overrule something that the Trump administration, whatever administration did. Here it's the Trump administration. They, believe it or not, my law school classmate Alex Acosta at the Labor Department issued a regulation saying that businesses do not have to digitally report health and safety violations to the U.S. Department of Labor. No data, no understanding, we can't know how to regulate our businesses. So I introduced that we will pass this Congressional Review Act so that we require health and safety matters to be reported, violations. I really want to raise the Wage Act. We brought this through the Education and Labor Committee. We have passed it in the House to gradually raise the minimum wage of the United States to $15 an hour by 2024. We passed that in the House. I really want to talk about the budget. I can't believe this budget. You know, they say that the budget you put out speaks to your values. The Trump budget reduces by 90% the Great Lakes Restoration Fund. It's inconceivable. Talk about super local, Jeremy. The news of today, right, or yesterday, whatever, is that we got some weird yellow substance in Bear Creek, 2 miles from here. Less than 2 miles as the crow flies. He wants to cut the EPA budget by $6.1 billion. He wants to cut Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security by trillions of dollars. That in 10 years. That's his proposal. We are there, I'm telling you, the new Democratic majority in the House of Representatives is going to defend Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security.
Absolutely.
Finally, let me just mention one more thing that's sort of really global and really local. I think it's one of the core reasons why Donald Trump is in the White House. It's NAFTA. As you know, the president has renegotiated this. I'm just going to tell you, I'm very worried about where this stands. The new NAFTA, I call it NAFTA 1.5, they gave the store away to Big Pharma. It would enshrine 10-year patent protection for biologics in a treaty so that Congress would not be able to say how long they should have patent protection. And it will help send prescription drug prices farther through the roof. It has inadequate labor protections. It has inadequate environmental protections. So we're fighting for this, and we have, I'm circulating a letter among freshmen demanding that there be changes. We met with U.S. Trade Representative Lighthizer yesterday, but the New Democrats have a competing letter that says, oh, well, you know, just come and meet with us and we want to hear more about it before we'll vote for it, but not taking a stand. And a lot of the freshmen are signing the other letter, including new freshmen from Michigan. So they're not, you know, I'm very worried that we may get another 25 years of disaster. And let's put a fine point on this for Warren, Michigan, and Center Line in our whole area. They say they're closing the Warren transmission plant. They say they're closing General Motors, the Hamtramck plant, the Poletown plant that we essentially gave them. We shut over 13, we raised 1,400 houses. We raised over 100 businesses, 12 or 13 churches.
Yes.
And through eminent domain gave them that land. And 30 years later, they just throw us out like yesterday's trash. In the last 10 years, General Motors has doubled the number of cars they made in Mexico. This new NAFTA is going to do nothing to slow that down unless we change it. And I'm telling you, I don't know if we're going to win or not, but I'm going to fight till my last breath so that anything that passes the Congress protects the working people of Southeast Michigan. So thank you very much. It's great to be here. I really look forward to hearing from the rest of the folks and answering your questions. Thank you so much. Go Democrats.
Next up is our new senator, but he's not new to Warren politics, Senator Paul Bueno.
All right. Oh, thank you, Jeremy, and good evening, everybody. Before I begin, too, I just want to take a moment. We had some elected officials that have walked in and joined us, and I wanted to introduce them. We have our county prosecutor, Eric Smith. All right. And former county treasurer and state representative, Derek Miller. All right. Our councilman, Robert Bacamino. And city manager of Center Line, Dennis Champagne. And did I miss anybody else?
Probably.
Oh, I don't have my glasses on. Mike Radke, Sterling Heights City Council. When I came in this evening, I had several questions, and many of you may know, but for those of you who do not know, Steve Bita is now with the governor's administration. He's been hired by the Department of Treasury, and he'll be working as the legislative liaison between the Senate and the House. And I've had the opportunity to meet with Steve now several times, and I guarantee you, it's a huge asset that we have him working on staff now with the governor. And also, it's a great asset that we have Art Miller as our lobbyist from Warren, working with the legislative delegation in Lansing. What Art brings that so many of us in some ways lack is the institutional knowledge. 26 years of experience in the state Senate, and he works with all of us each and every week, and he is a true asset, and we're happy to have him as well. Andy talked about the committee assignments, and I've been appointed to 3 committees. I am a member of the Regulatory Reform Committee, the Health Policy Committee, and the Elections Committee with former Secretary of State Ruth Johnson, who chairs that committee. And it's obvious, I know that when we hear from our legislative delegation at the state level, what our priorities are. Of course, roads are number one, and we know that recently we had a budget proposal, or a road proposal, I should say, with a new funding formula from the governor. And what I brought along, and it covers the entire state Senate district, which also includes Roseville and East Point, on the back table, there is a map. And can go over that with you later if you'd like to take a look at that. Councilman Bacamino is holding that up. And that map would designate the roads that the governor intends to repave just in the state Senate district. Now, mind you, I'm not here to promote it. I'm not jumping up and down because there has been a lot of opposition to the proposal. But it is a separate funding formula, and all that money would be spent entirely in the southeast region of Michigan here. Approximately 5 million cars travel those roads here in this area, and we have over 7 million in the state of Michigan. However, I think not only myself, but so many others that represent the 5 counties in the area, we really would like to see a new road funding formula. And there has been some legislation that's been introduced. One of the bills that I did co-sponsor calls for registration fees to be returned into the county where those fees are spent. So those are some of the things that are going on as it pertains to roads. And I'd like to, like I said, meet with many of you later just to go over that map. Also at the front, I brought the booklets that are available from our office. And if anybody is interested, you can take a look at the booklets that I brought. And if you're interested in 1 or 1,000 booklets, there's a form you can fill out. And we'd be happy to get those to you. But aside from roads, it's also no-fault auto insurance reform. And you're looking at me, how much time do I have?
You're done. The red card's up.
Leave some for the rest of us.
Yeah, you gotta tell us, Jeremy, where to look.
Real quickly, though.
Card's right here.
Okay, real quickly, and we'll go into some of this later, some of the legislation that I've been working on, repeal of the senior pension tax, human trafficking. And that was interesting, and I'll get into a little story about how we're developing a package as it relates to that. And to touch upon what Congressman Levin spoke about, the Great Lakes Restoration Funds. Today I introduced in Lansing a resolution calling that the funding be maintained, and the committee that I was assigned to, the Republican chair of that committee, wants to take that up and send that on to Washington. So I think we're developing a good spirit of cooperation at this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, before we introduce the rest of our panel, I just want to tell everybody, if you have a question, make sure to raise your hand. We have volunteers that are handing out forms. So raise your hand if you have a question, we'll get you a form. With that, we're going to next move on to our senior state representative. Senior as in been there the longest, not age. John Turkin.
Good afternoon, everybody. And actually, I am both. I'm probably the oldest, and I've been there the longest. Well, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be here with the Hometown Heroes. I really enjoy when our county prosecutor and one of his guys come, and Derek Miller, the former rep, and you know, there's a lot of politics in his family, and his dad's the greatest guy in the world, too, to work with, like Paul said. But anyways, you've heard most of it from Paul. I don't want to bore you with the things that the roads and the auto insurance, but we do have a budget in front of us. We do have a package, and there'll be a lot of negotiating and a lot of wheeling and dealing there. And I know how many people in this audience. I know I probably when I ask this question, how many people want to pay 45 cents for a gallon of gas?
More.
Yeah.
45 more.
See, unfortunately, because and I'll say it like it is, the Republicans been kicking that can down the road, putting Band-Aids every year on the road problem. Now, Jennifer came up and she's got the gumption and the guts. Gretchen. Gretchen. I do that all the time. Gretchen has the gumption and the guts to do that, because nobody else has that, and she's I want to say playing poker, and she's not going to blink. She wants that money. We need our roads fixed. We need it for our jobs. We need it down Mound Road for all our businesses and that. And that's just one of the things. The other one that I want to talk to, that my predecessor, Harold Hall, he was the godfather of the fireworks bill. And last year, fortunately, I kind of fixed that bill for everybody. So we brought it down from 30 holidays down to 9, and it should be pretty good. I got 1 minute left. I think this is a council meeting in Roseville, so I've only got so much time to give out. But anyways, all our contingency, you got Nate Shannon's going to come up and talk, Lori Stone. They're part of the transportation. We have a good cross-section of committee assignments. I'm on regulatory reform, and I'm working on some gambling bills right now to have more gambling, internet gambling, fantasy sports, gambling, that brings some more tax dollars into the region, so we can afford some of these things. And with that, I'm going to close out. And once again, thank you for letting me. I humbly appreciate this.
Next up is my state rep, Nate Shannon.
All right.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. Wow, the crowd has gotten huge, so that's great. I'm really happy to be here today with all of these great people. So, my name is, as Jeremy said, my name is Nate Shannon. I'm in my first term, state representative in District 25, which is a portion of Warren. I'm using my professional experience to sort of drive my agenda of the things that I want to try to accomplish up in Lansing. I'm a former teacher with the Lance Cruz School District, so education is really important to me. I have young kids.
Many of us here have kids and we know how important education is. And so I'm a big supporter of that, and whatever we can do to try to get some small victories in the next 2 years, because we are the minority party, I'm going to fight to do. Also, road funding, of course, is a big issue with all of us and my constituents who are really concerned about road funding. And I'm happy that Governor Whitmer has been so bold in her budget. I think that there are a lot of good things. Some negotiations, as Rep. Churkin said, are going to have to take place before we settle on a budget. But I'm happy to see that if we could get some sort of increase in the gas tax, that it's also going to free up money for education. And I think that's really important because it's my top priority. My committees, I am on the on Energy Committee and also Transportation. And was sort of discouraged yesterday because there's been this idea that there's, this bipartisanship is going to be taking place for a long time up in Lansing. Unfortunately, our chair, Chair Bellino, Republican, allowed Rep. Hall to come in and to talk about his resolution against the Green New Deal. Now, there are some good things with the Green New Deal. There are some things that I'm not sure would work. But the fact of the matter is that Rep. Hall came into our Transportation Committee to testify using quite a bit of inflammatory language to sort of degrade that bipartisanship that was there for a very brief time. And unfortunately, it's foreshadowing, I think, what's going to be happening in the next 2 years. But we're going to have to come together as Democrats and as Republicans if we're going to get anything done. So once again, thank you so much for allowing me. I see I have only less than a minute left here. So thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to your questions. So thank you.
Next up, we've got another new state representative. We're in her district now, Lori Stone.
Thank you. I really want to thank Warren Democratic Club for stepping up and organizing this community conversation. This week, we really showed a light on how Michigan is ranked 50th in the nation for accountability and transparency. And it really goes to show when we hear a lot of political conversations and rhetoric going on, there's a lot of distrust of government, what decisions are being made. And this week we're really working towards making sure that we are more transparent and accountable in our policy and budgets. As a new representative, through social media, it's given me the opportunity to share out with the community just a small taste of what we do on a daily basis. And when there's not a new post on that day, it's probably because I've gone from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. and there was not enough time to put up a post of all the things we cover. I really appreciate the seniority of Rep. Churkin. He's been a great mentor, and I can speak for Rep. Shannon and myself. And the first 4 months since election, we've got a steep learning curve. We have just been inundated with information. The priorities we heard at the doors as we were knocking of auto insurance, infrastructure, education, drinkable water, and taking care of our environment. They're also, regardless of whether it is a Republican or a Democrat, we've got the same set of requirements for us to solve. And so hopefully, as we go forward, we're looking for that common ground. We come at it from different directions, but we've heard the mandate, and we need to find common solutions. Speaking to my specific committees, I'm on the Education Committee, which is near and dear to my heart as a public school teacher for nearly 15 years. I'm excited to advocate for early childhood education, making sure our K-12 system is adequately funded, making sure that our students are prepared for the workforce, regardless whether they're going directly into an apprenticeship or a career technical education program, or a 2-year program or a 4-year program. And I appreciate the leadership of the governor in really setting a standard for achievement, but also helping to offset the costs of higher education. In addition, I am working on legislation to make sure that our K-12 system's getting adequate and equitable funding. We know from data-driven research that the cost of educating a child with special needs, English language learners, or children coming from poverty is higher. And we know that because standardized testing does a really good job of identifying school districts in poverty, whether you're urban, rural, or suburban. And regardless of how we evaluate our schools, we keep getting the same results. The problem is we don't change the research or the resources to empower our teachers to help our children achieve. And so that's another thing I'm really appreciating from the governor is the recognition and changing of school funding to make sure our schools are getting the resources that they need to help our students succeed. So thank you. I'm glad to be here with you tonight.
Luckily, we've got 2 great county commissioners. Actually, we have 3 great Democratic county commissioners that represent Warren. 2 of them are able to make it tonight. First up is Andre Duge, who is my county commissioner.
Good evening, one and all. How are you?
Good.
Oh, God. Come on. A little bit of alive back there. My name's Andre Duge, and I'm county commissioner in District 1. My learning curve is a lot longer. I'm in my 6th term. When people ask from 2016, well, are you getting involved in the presidential race? I said, no. I've got other things on my mind. I said, how about Snyder? What do you think about working with Snyder? I said, no, I don't have time for that. And then I was asked, well, the mayor, you've got Mayor Fouts. What do you think about that? I said, I don't have time to think about that. And I had a whole lot of people give me 10 miles of bad road about, well, what are you thinking about? I said, I'm working my tail off because we've got a clerk that has taken probably an award-winning department and destroyed it in under a year. We worked 1.5 years to get rid of her. Fred Miller is now our clerk. How about a hand for that? As county commissioner, everybody always asks, well, what is it that you guys do? Well, you'd be surprised what we do, kind of surprised what we don't do. We've got the county prosecutor, Eric Smith, who's doing a bang-up job. He's cleaned up a lot of the problems that were happening in Macomb County. We've also got the county jail, Tony Wickersham, who's our sheriff, doing a terrific job. And if you've read the paper or anything else, you'll know that everybody's thinking about a new jail at this point in time. The jail we've got is probably 30, 40 years old, maybe more. The next big deal that we're going to have coming through will have to do with the water and with the sewer. How many people heard about the sinkhole? That's it, huh? Nobody watches TV, nobody reads newspapers. Come on, guys. 15-mile road's a disaster. This is the 3rd sinkhole to happen in that line. We're working on getting that fixed. Also, additionally, 10, 12, and 14-mile road between DeQuinder and Ryan are going to be fixed after the water mains are fixed under the road. That's why the roads haven't been fixed yet. But we're working on it. There's a whole bunch of other things that are going on at the county. We're going to have to spend some money on drains and getting that fixed so we don't have sinkholes. Other than that, I look forward to your questions. And I've been working hard on seeing what we can do down here south of 696. I refuse to call it South Warren because I think that splits us up and it's not fair. but whatever we can do positively south of 696, I'm a big fan. And I think it's great that Fred Miller is having the clerk's office at the library. It's a start. Thank you very much for being here. I look forward to your questions.
Next up, County Commissioner Marv Sager. We're in his district.
Thank you. The big question I got, we've been in Center Line, I've been here since 1942. Before I graduated St. Clemens, then I became on the Sheriff's Department and a County Commissioner. This is the largest crowd for a Democratic meeting that I've ever seen, and it's the first time we've ever had it in Center Line. You know, that county is a big city, but Center Line's also in there. This is the first time we've ever had it here, and thank you for having it here. Now, I want to also say a few accolades for our city manager. Dennis Champagne, you're doing a heck of a job because the city is going forward, and as these businesses grow, Dennis, you'll be proud and we'll be proud of you also. So, and the last thing I want to say is, I feel good, I feel great. And people say, how long are you going to run for? Well, they can't shut me up out there. And as long as I can support my seniors, I'll stay up there, okay? Good, thank you very much. God bless you all.
All right, next up is our City Treasurer, Lori Barnwell.
All right.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight, and Hometown Heroes. You guys are awesome. Definitely come back and visit them. Thank you, Warren Area Democratic Club, Jeremy Fisher, Christina Lodavisi as well has been doing a great job on this event too. So Lori kind of touched on this, our state rep here in Warren, about knocking doors. And that's really where we as leaders get our ideas from you. And if I could nail down the top 3 things I heard you ask me to do in 2015, I'd have to say better technology on the Warren website. That was the number 1 thing I heard, which I 100% agreed with. The second thing was better customer service when you come to City Hall. And the third thing was our investment return on our fund balance for the city. So I have good news on all 3 of those things. The first thing is this spring, we're going to have a new payment portal for the City of Warren launch. And with that payment portal, it's going to be very convenient. You have a user ID and password. You'll be able to log on, pay your water bill, pay your taxes, and you'll be able, if you want to, do it by your cell phone or text and pay, which is awesome. Another great feature. Now, for those who don't feel comfortable online, that's okay. We will also still have where you can call to make your payment over the phone. If you use your checking account, savings account, that is a free service for you. And I know a lot of our seniors really love that. They don't have to worry about, sending the mail with a stamp. They don't have to worry about coming up to City Hall. They can just make that convenient payment right over the phone. So we're really excited about that. As far as customer service, so I used to be a bank manager for Chase Bank, and customer service was very important when I was there at Chase. And so I took a lot of the same lessons that I learned from Chase and applied them to my office. So my employees have been doing such a great job. We have training after training to make sure that when you come in, that you're getting the best service possible. And then the third thing was investment return. So on our fund balance, when I came in to the City of Warren, we were making approximately about $500,000 a year, $500,000. Last year in 2018, because of wise financial choices that I had made with the investments, we made $2.2 million for our investment return for the City of Warren. So really excited about that, and thank you, the residents, because like I said, it's your voice, your suggestion. I just want to say, I know I have 30 seconds, but I just want to say one more thing. I get this question asked a lot. What is the most important issue facing Warren right now? For me, it is hands down the downtown. The downtown, what we pick as the residents for the downtown in Warren is going to affect where Warren is going to be, if Warren is going to be a leader in this area, if people are going to move into Warren and give more revenue for our roads, for our schools. We have to get this downtown right. And I think, God bless GM, we should be a partner with them, but the downtown needs to be for the people, for the residents of Warren. And you'll keep hearing me say that over and over again. We cannot get this wrong. And I'm asking all the residents, make your voices heard. Downtown should be for us. Thank you.
All right, we're going to get started with questions in just a minute, but I want to acknowledge just a couple of people that are here tonight that haven't been acknowledged yet. Mary Hall Rayford is a candidate for East Point City Council. Melvin Logan is a candidate for Warren City Council. Connor Birdie is a candidate for Warren City Council. Bob Bacamino is a current city councilman, and he is running for re-election. Dave Radke was here earlier. He had to take off, but he's the chair of the 9th District Democratic Party. And I'd like to welcome up next, just before we start with questions, our county prosecutor to talk a little bit about the excellent work that he is doing, Eric Smith.
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it. I was not planning on coming up here, but when I see everyone sitting here looking forward, I got to come here and say something. But thank you all so much for being here, and Jeremy, thank you for having me. It was nice listening to Marv talk for a little while, talking about how long he's been here. He was partners with my dad back at the Sheriff's Department in the 50s. That's how long Marv has been around. There he is. So I get to hear all these great stories about my dad, but so I'm not sure people know how busy our office is or how big it is. Anyone know that we have 63 attorneys in our office? 63, the largest law firm in all of Macomb County. And we prosecute 20,000 cases a year. That's how busy that office is. And, I've been in the office now for 25 years. I was elected 15 years ago, and it just keeps getting busier. And it's not something that I'm proud of. But we're doing everything we can to make people safe every single day. We always say we're tough on crime, but we like to say I'm tough on the causes of crime. And one of the big causes of crime that we see right now is the opioid addiction. It is in everyone's life, in every single person out there. The police departments are dealing with daily, the fire departments. Just today, I was at a press conference in East Point with the governor and Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York City. He donated $10 million to the state to fight the opioid addiction. Yeah, $10 million. And the governor was here in Macomb County to talk about how it's going to be spent. Because here in Macomb County, we are one of the highest rates of addiction here. And in our jail, the biggest, Marv was talking, I think maybe Andre was talking about the jail issues we have. Our jail is the largest substance abuse treatment facility in the county. And that's not what our jails are for. So we're getting people in there that are going in because they're addicted to drugs. They don't have the money to get out. Then when they serve their sentence, they get out. They don't have the money to buy the drugs, so they get more by stealing, get back in. We have this vicious circle going on. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get in front of it. We can treat it after it happens, but it's such a difficult road. So every single day we're trying to find ways, along with CARE and FAN and Hope Not Handcuffs, to get in front of the drug problem before it affects all of us, because it has affected all of us. And once again, we're tough on crime, and if you fall victim of crime, you're going to be happy that I'm standing next to you. But we're going to do everything we can to stop crime before it happens. And I think that's probably even better than being tough on crime. So thank you all so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Jackie Kelly. I'm a proud resident of Warren, and I'm also a proud retiree of the plant that is about to be closed on 9 Mile. And I want to first thank all the representatives here that came out on a cold winter day for our prayer vigil and supported us. My question is this. Understanding the racial divide that we've been plagued with in this country under Donald Trump, and understanding the issues that we've had in Macomb County, what ideas do you all have to try to move past this and show Macomb County as a beautiful county that it is with the great people that we have?
All right, I'm gonna, this one's not working. No, is it working?
Hold it close, super close. Yeah, that's it.
All right, there we go.
Yep.
There's just a couple more people that we didn't get on the sign-in. We've got Sue Smiley, candidate for City Council. Walter Lucky Haig, who's the president of the TIFA board. And Carl Weckerly, who's on the Warren Consolidated City Council. Did I miss anybody else? All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to ask Lauren Stankovich to come on up to ask a question. And while we're waiting for her to come up, we'll start with our first question. Centerline, Macomb, we all have a lot of charter and for-profit schools. School of choice being, the question here is school of choice being looked at as it's currently diminishing any sense of community in all areas? So this one is left up to whoever wants to answer.
I'll start. So school of choice has a tendency to divert funds from our local schools, which are accountable to our local citizens through citizen-elected school boards, which is problematic. As for charters, we don't see the same standards and transparency being applied to them. So we're definitely working on legislation to make sure that they're as accountable for tax dollars and student achievement as our local public schools are.
Does anybody else want to address this?
I just wanted to add to that. This issue has been ongoing for the past 20 years. And we've limited it, schools of choice 20 years ago, but it continues to grow. And as Lori has emphasized, it really drains money away from public education. And it's something that it's in some ways gotten out of control. And we do need to address the issue. And it's, as I said, it's something that has grown over the past 20 years, and we need to take a few steps back and address it.
Do you want to step up and answer questions?
Hello, my name is Lauren Stankovich. I'm from Care of Southeastern Michigan, but I'm also a proud representative of the Warren Center Line Prevention Coalition. And so my question is, and I think it's very pertinent on the heels of what Prosecutor Smith just said, is what are your plans to address the opiate epidemic and other substance abuse related concerns? I stand here. Good job.
Anybody particular you want to ask that of?
I think it is a problem that affects the entire community, so I'm very interested in a lot of different approaches.
Okay. Who wants to take it first?
I'll go first. Last year, we did pass a few bills addressing the opioids. We have a computer system that all doctors have to go into now if they prescribe opiates, and they can only give you so many pills per visit now. So we're working on it slowly but surely. But the good thing is, in your community service club, we have one almost in every city in Macomb County, if I'm not mistaken. I know we have one in Roseville. I know we have one in Warren. And we work closely with them. Sometimes me or the staff people, they go and they listen to what the high school kids are saying, what the teachers are saying, and what you're saying to get it done. But they do have bills now in the hopper in the state of Michigan to address more of this, to clamp it down and do more things to it. Unfortunately, we kind of look to the federal government for some money to take care of this, because the state's only got so much to go around. But we're working on it. That's all I can say. The mayor, in his thing, he had a town hall meeting, I think it was last year or a year before, to address the opioids, and he understands it too, the mayor of Warren. And so does the mayor of Roseville also. So him being a former narcotics officer with the Macomb County Sheriff's Department. So, but yeah, we're working on it.
Thanks for your question. I would like to add a couple things. First of all, I think of the 21 communities in Michigan's 9th Congressional District. I've been to visit with 18 of them so far. We're going to finish the rest of them hopefully on this recess. You may have noticed we lost one of our recesses to Trump's ridiculous shutdown. But we are visiting with everyone, and we visited with both Center Line and Warren already. And everyone we talk about this horrible opioid crisis. I am really proud that my dad was the original author of the legislation with Rob Portman, a Republican from Ohio, who was then a member of the House, of the legislation that led to the community coalitions. And I'm pledging to you that we are going to keep funding those to help deal with this problem. Secondly, you do need resources from the federal government. I don't understand yet, though, what exactly we should do. And so I'm studying this as best I can. Every police chief has said to me, gee, just like what Eric Smith said, we don't want this to be a law enforcement thing. This is a healthcare thing, it's a public health thing, it's a community issue about that should move towards prevention and treatment. And so that's my orientation for it, and we really need to put more federal resources into it so we can help prevent people from getting addicted and move people out of prisons and into treatment if that's their situation.
So really quickly, so that we can get on to other questions, I think that this is a great opportunity for Macomb reps, Macomb Democrats and Republican reps to come together to try to get more funding into Macomb County to help fight this crisis. That along with other mental health issues that I've been hearing a lot of talk about, and so I'm open to working with the other parties so that we can hopefully get a handle on this terrible issue.
Okay. Thank you, Lauren, for the work you do. All right, next up I'd like to ask Maria Rivera to come on up to ask a question. And while we're waiting, we're going to go ahead and ask this question. We heard earlier about the expanding of gaming. With the expanding of gaming, does that include sports betting? And will revenue be earmarked for a specific area like roads or schools? Or will it go into the general fund?
Let me see the question. So I can answer each part of it. Sports betting, yeah, there is a component for sports betting. The casinos have, I guess I can say, embraced it. The Indian tribe casinos have embraced it, but not all of them will take part in it. The revenue earnings will come back. I think it's 9% goes into the city of Detroit. So, and Sherry DeNogo, the rep out of Detroit, she wants to see it go into programs for the neighborhoods instead of going into the downtown development, so they can spruce up and fix up the neighborhood in Detroit. And some of the money will go to the general fund, but I don't know at this point because we're still negotiating how much the tax revenue is going to be from. But there's another component I forgot to talk about, and that's the charitable gaming. We have our VFW, our American Legions, our Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Chamber of Commerce. A couple of years ago, they cut that in two. So some of their operating budget for the charitable gaming got cut in half because of the person that's in charge of the gaming. He felt that it was running rampant and it was probably taking money away from the casinos and nobody was paying taxes on it. So that's why they clamped down on it. But they do have a bill to resurrect that, to add more time and more games and more dates so you can raise money. Because the money that usually comes in from the charitable gaming is stuff that they use to feed people or to do projects for the state, like they put docks in state parks. So it's money that is well used and returned back into the community. But I hope I answered everybody's question and all of them. So thank you.
Thanks. Somebody else?
I just wanted to add that I know that the House and the Senate are working on companion bills. And I was not a member of the Senate the last legislative session. There was a package of bills. John, do you know how many bills were in the package?
There was about 6 or 7.
But they did go all the way to the governor's desk, and he vetoed them. I do have a feeling that since there's bipartisan support on this issue, and that there'll be companion bills in the House and the Senate, it will go to the governor's desk again.
I'm okay with that, thank you. My name's Maria Rivera. I am a resident of Warren, and I had a question actually at the state level. So, you know, we all heard about Governor Whitmer's tax, 42 cents, 46 cents. I'm not sure where it is today. I wanted to know if the potential revenue from marijuana sales, which 35% of that money was supposed to go to roads and bridges. I wondered, number one, if that was included, you know, maybe we can reduce the 45 cents down to 35 cents, I don't know. The other thing, I wanted to know if there was any pork attached to the, you understand what I mean by pork? Extra stuff that perhaps doesn't belong. Is there anything in her proposal that we should know about? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can bring yours.
I'll do one section, you can do the other.
Okay.
We did have our budget director, Chris Cole, come into our Senate caucus and of course the House caucus as well. And what they wanted to emphasize is that this would be a separate distribution format. It would be separate of Act 51, and there were a lot of questions as to how that money would be spent. And they had indicated, I did bring the map that encompasses the entire Senate district, which includes Lori's district and Representative Church's district, and a small portion of Representative Shannon's district. We were told in caucus that money would be used entirely for roads, and they had broken it down where 47% would be used on our interstates and other freeways. 30% would be principal arterials, 14% would be minor arteries, 4% would be dedicated to local bridges, 3% would be dedicated to transit and rail, and 2% would be to the local rural economic corridor. And Lori, you just want to add to that?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so 45 cents per gallon of gas really hits home with how big an issue this is. This is $2.5 billion, not just one time, continuously for repairs and maintenance. $2.5 billion. How are we going to fix this? If there was pork to be cut, if there were alternatives, you better believe in the last 8 years, Republicans would have found it. They're facing the same challenges as the majority in the House, and with the demands of their constituents as well as ours, to solve this problem. One of the things to consider is we're already paying a road tax. The average driver is paying between $300 and $800 a year in car repairs, and it's doing nothing to improve the roads. So $300, $500, $800 at a time, we're throwing that money out, and it's not doing anything to improve it. So we need to start being proactive and start looking at it as an investment. You know, if we're willing to pay for it after it's caused the damage, why aren't we willing to do something about it before? It causes car accidents. This is a problem. 45 cents is one way to look at it. And you better believe the governor has taken a look, and her team has taken a look in many different ways. Here's a few things you had to choose from. An individual income tax rate that goes from 4.25% to 5.3%. A whole point raise in your individual income tax rate. A corporate income tax rate from 6% to 19.5%. That's not a solution. Sales and use tax from 6% to 7.4%. A statewide property tax, which we do not currently have, to 7 mills. Or if none of those sound, like a potential, a motor vehicle registration tax from what we currently have, which has recently been raised, to a 180% tax increase. There's no good way to look at it. You know what's popular? Is getting out in front of your voters and giving them a tax break. We watched that happen. Nothing improved. We failed to take over $1 billion, almost $2 billion, and reinvest it in roads. We gave it back. So the question is, what do we do? Because doing nothing is not an option. It's not going to get better. I believe that we're at about 70%, and every year it degrades between 3 to 5%. So every year we do nothing, we're moving back further and further. So they've looked at sin taxes, marijuana, and none of that is enough to fund $2.5 billion in road tax. So we need to take a serious look at what are our options. Does that mean 45 cents at the gas pump has to be? No. Could it be a combination of these things? Possibly. And we're all willing to take a really good hard look to see what works. But when we were elected, we were sent to Lansing to get our roads fixed, get our infrastructure improved. And it's not easy to come to you and say, we need more. And I know for a lot of you who are dealing with low income and fixed incomes, I am proud to say that our governor took you into consideration as she put together this package. She's looking to bring back the earned income tax credit and double it for our low income families. And she's looking to repeal the senior pension tax, also to offset that for people dealing with fixed incomes. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
The young lady asked about the marijuana tax. Right now under medical marijuana, and I'm just using this as a figure, $20 million, that probably will only do Van Dyke from 8 miles to 12 miles. Okay, theoretically. And I'll draw the analogy for everybody. We put $900 million into the state education fund, and believe it or not, within the first month, all that money's gone because it pays for all the schools in the state of Michigan. And that will be what happens if any tax money, because they don't have a price tag right now when all the grow shops and the distribution centers open up. They don't really have a handle on how much tax revenue, but we've been assured that the governor will put that much money from there into the road funds. The only problem is some legislature comes along the next year and takes some of that money out to put in another project over there. So when these bills, and I can speak for most of my Democratic colleagues, when they do that, we're asking for the money to be dedicated for roads, so there's no sleight of hand or put, from one hand to the other hand. Thank you.
I just want to add real quickly two things. One is, I voted for the Proposition 1, but let's all realize it was designed by proponents of marijuana. And it includes the lowest tax rate, I think, if I'm not wrong, of any state that's passed it so far. I don't think anybody here maybe thought of that, but that's what we got to vote on, and that's what was put on the ballot. And that's really unfortunate, because we're going to get a lot. I think most of us think the same way. It's going to cause some problems, but basically, you know, alcohol's been legal forever. It causes problems. Regulate it like alcohol, and it's just really a shame that it's not going to get very much money to solve all of our problems. So, but the second thing is, I do want to say this. The Democrats in the House of Representatives will pass a really substantial infrastructure bill, like soon, late this spring or during the summer. And it's going to present, and it won't just be about roads, but it will include significant funding. What I can't tell you is what the U.S. Senate will do or what the President will do. Obviously, President Trump, who said he was going there to fight for the average person, when he got there in his first 2 years, what happened about infrastructure? Nothing. How much, if you think back, how much discussion was there even? Virtually nothing. Why? Because his proposal was the federal government will give 20% of the funding for infrastructure, and the local taxpayers and the states are supposed to give 80%. Well, that is absurd. I mean, they don't have the money. So we will pass something significant, and I'm hopeful. There's a lot more Republican senators up for re-election this time than last time. They need to try to get re-elected, and appropriators like to wheel and deal and pass things to bring home, you know, projects to their district. So I'm hopeful we will at least get some significant infrastructure bill passed out of the whole Congress and signed by the President. But we're going to do our part in the House in any event.
All right, next up on deck, I'd like to invite my friend Jackie Kelly up.
Uh-oh.
And while she's coming up, we'll ask this question. When is the south end of Warren, not South Warren, but the south end of Warren, being developed, not just a mini police station or a library, but significant development in the south end of Warren?
The new City Hall will open later this year, which will include a new library, mini police station, city offices, so that's set to open this fall. But it kind of ties in, I feel like that question really ties into what I had said before. And really what not just South End Warren, all of Warren in general needs a new vision forward. And if Ferndale can do it, if Royal Oak can do it, there's no reason that Warren can't do it. But it takes a vision. And it takes a vision that makes sense for this area. We are not Royal Oak. We are not Ferndale, but we can learn from their examples and make it who we are here in Warren and make it an area where people want to be homeowners. And that's really what the Warren in general needs, particularly South End Warren, but also in North Warren as well. We need to become a region where people want to move. And you look at places like Royal Oak and Ferndale and others, you know, people are willing to rent or own tiny little houses because they want to be there. They want to be, they subscribe to the vision of that city. And that's what we need to do in Warren. We need to have a vision that makes sense for us, that's going to attract people to want to move here and buy their homes here. You know, have families be here so they can be in our schools. We have good schools here in Warren. And we want to make sure that they are continuing to be funded. And the way that that happens is having people move here and be homeowners, be invested in the community. And how we do that, going a step back, is having a downtown, having a vision for the whole entirety of Warren. Maybe not just having one downtown makes sense. Maybe having different districts, different pockets throughout Warren, because we're one Warren. I know my friend Andre Duge talks about this a lot. We are one Warren, and we all need to be connected, and having different areas throughout the city might make more sense than just having one central downtown. But that's going to be up to the people of Warren and what you are going to decide in the coming years. So that's what I want to add.
I just wanted to add that several weeks ago, both House members and Senate members were approached by our leadership, and they had asked us to make appropriations requests. Don't know what crumbs will be left over after the budget is adopted, but I do know that Lori's office and my office, we had a dialogue about some of the requests that we were making. And one of the top priorities was economic investment in the city of Warren and in our new city hall.
Just for a second, we've got to remember that the Bush Library on Ryan Road across from Fitzgerald, we have the other library here on Van Dyke, we've got the City Hall, new offices going in. This is all getting built south of 696. We've also got the Thompson Center, which personally I'm very, very happy and proud of. It's not even in my district, but it's at 8.5 Mile Road in Hoover, and they have child care, they have medical care, they have a variety of things that people need in this area. When I was on the TIFA board, we took a look, and from 8 Mile to 9.5 Mile, there were no pediatricians, there were no dentists, there were no doctors, there was nothing. And the area needs help as far as medical, it needs help as far as social. It was very, very important to have even the libraries. The libraries aren't built for books anymore, people. They're built to be computer labs because people can't afford either the hookup or the computers or whatever else. And if people want their children to grow up and have a better life, the only way to do it is through education. And we have to give people the opportunity to do that. That's why it's important. That's why I will always stand up for that particular segment. Go Warren. All right.
Hello, my name is Jackie Kelly. I'm a proud resident of Warren, and I'm also a proud retiree of the plant that is about to be closed on 9 Mile. And I want to first thank all the representatives here that came out on a cold winter day for our prayer vigil and supported us. My question is this: understanding the racial divide that we've been plagued with in this country under Donald Trump, and understanding the issues that we've had in Macomb County, what ideas do you all have to try to move past this and show Macomb County as a beautiful county that it is with the great people that we have?
This one I gotta take. And I love you and you know it. It's the view of people that we live with. Now, I've lived in Warren since about 1965, and there were a couple of years on and off there that I moved out. I don't know how many people have grown up in Warren, have raised their kids in Warren. We raised our kids here. I'd love to have a chance to raise my grandkids here. But if you think about it, Warren has always been a heart of diversity. Like it or not, there were Germans here, then the Italians, and then the Polish, then the Ukrainians, and then the Hmong, which most people never heard of. Then came the Vietnamese, then came the African Americans, then came everybody and anybody. Then we've got Chaldean populations, we've got Arab populations. People, my view is that we've got diversity. Open up your eyes and take a look. first of all. And second of all, don't be scared about anything. There's nothing to be worried about. Everybody wants what's best for their children, what's best for their homes, what's best for their neighborhoods. That's what it's about. And I treat Jackie like a sister. I hope. And it's how we view things. I look at it, we've been diverse since day one. And I have no idea what other nationality or group is moving in next. But that's what's made Warren what it is. And that's what made Warren grow to the third largest city in the state of Michigan. I'm proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
I would say just in general as well, we as residents need to put continued pressure on our leaders to make sure that we are hiring a vast, diverse group of excellent people to represent us and to be in our leadership roles. Yeah. And that is people of different races, people of different backgrounds, people of different genders, people of different sexual orientations, people of different ages. I mean, even for me as a young female, I appreciate Marv Sauger. You know, he's that kind of wisdom. You know, we all can work together and learn from each other, but we have to have all different types of people in our leadership, because that is how we grow. That is how we can be the best that Warren and this county can be.
As a teacher in Fitzgerald Public Schools and having grown up in Warren myself and stayed and worked and live, I'm proud of my community. I'm proud of our diversity and inclusiveness. The kids that I teach have an incredible experience. The diversity of the students that they grew up with, they see beyond so many barriers. I wish everyone had that opportunity. I am really inspired by the people in our community who have stepped up to take on running for city council so that our leadership reflects our community. But I do understand that question, because I see what Warren has to offer. I see the diversity in our community. I see the affordability of our community. And when I have friends who are looking for a place to live, and I say, you need to come check out these houses. They're incredible. Some are being revamped. They're affordable. And they say, I don't think I would be accepted in Warren. It breaks my heart. And so I really am picking up the flag and showing that Warren is an inclusive city.
All right.
I so appreciate all my colleagues' comments, and Jackie, I mean, this question is so important. This country, 230 whatever years, it's like the greatest democracy. We have this incredible Constitution, but we have to remember what an imperfect document it was. We have to remember that it excluded most people. It even excluded most white men. It excluded all black people, all women. You had to be a landholder. You could not have a mortgage and vote and participate. And so we've made progress, and it's been fitful. We go forward and we go back. And it's hard work. And I so appreciate the idea of, Lori, like we're all in this together. So and I'll just speak, from my very recent personal experience. I think, and I'm only speaking in this way because I think this is going to become public against my wishes. Rashida Tlaib just called me, so it might be public right now. But when all this stuff swirling around in the Democratic caucus in the Congress about anti-Semitism, and you've got the most diverse, youngest class ever in the Congress, and people are calling each other out and resolutions and this and that. And I had a different idea. And so I organized a very private dialogue, including the Muslim members and some Jewish members and African American members and Latino members and so forth. And we came together and had really a beautiful and difficult discussions about, like, what is anti-Semitism, how does it fit into these larger issues of inclusivity, racism, and so forth. And we're going to continue that. We're going to continue to have that dialogue where we can really get to know each other as human beings. And so it's both about systems and about relationships. We have to build authentic relationships with each other if we want to overcome these things. And that's a great task for Macomb County and every other county in this country. And I'm proud of the progress we're making here, and we have to pledge to keep doing it together.
That's right.
Jackie, I just wanted to say, I really believe that we are headed in the right direction in this community. When we look at our audience tonight as well, it is a diverse community. And speaking as a parent, I've had 3 children, still one in our public school system that's gone through the local public school system here in Center Line and in Warren, and I've seen the changes, and they're changes for the better. And last night, I attended at DeCarlos a scholarship program. They honored 22 students from our area schools here, and it was a diverse makeup of students. We had African American students, we had Hmong student, we had 3 Muslim students, and everyone here in the community was there to show their support. And I know we're headed in the right direction here in Warren.
I'm short. Good evening. My name is Christina Lodovisi, and I have a question for our 2 teachers, Representative Nate Shannon and Lori Stone. I'm a parent of 3 kids, as most of you might know already. And with a lot of the snow days that we've had recently, I'd like to know where the legislation is. I know that they've put out a bill, but I'd like to know what's going on with that. I want to know if we're going to have to extend our school days or not.
Yeah, it's still just passed out in Education Committee. Yeah.
They're going to school till July.
It's Michigan. What's new? So we know that we put in so many school days that are excused per year because it's Michigan and that's what we do. And then we have the opportunity to appeal additional days to the legislature and most likely get them excused. In addition, because of the unique circumstances from the extreme weather that we had, the governor shut down not just schools, but also government for much of the state. And so there was just legislation brought into the elementary education committee that addressed if the governor cancels services, that the schools would automatically be forgiven. They wouldn't have to apply for a waiver. And the schools would receive the funding, because even if students aren't there, we still have to pay for heat, we still have to pay for lights, we have to pay for taxes. So that was in pretty much an agreement. Our union members came to us and said, you know, we had some pretty extreme weather this year, really extreme conditions. If the school districts are getting their full funding per pupil, would you please consider your hourly workers? Because we had some school districts where in their 2-week pay period, they missed as many as 8 and 9 days of pay. These are hourly workers who work so hard to keep our schools safe, and they don't have the choice of whether to show up or not. They exhaust their sick days, and they still have to pay bills, and they still have to pay for their heat. And so my Democratic colleagues and I took a stand. We offered an amendment. It did not go through. There was opposition from my Republican counterparts. It will go on to Ways and Means Committee, and there will be another opportunity to appeal that. And I expect that to be on the floor for a general vote before too long. And there'll be another opportunity to look at that. I have no doubt that there will be a significant number of those days forgiven.
I almost have my own question because Lori Rep Stone is actually on the education committee, and so she went through this process and heard all these discussions. I'm just curious, and I have a question: why are the Republicans resistant to this? They're okay with the fact that to add these school days or forgive these school days, I should say, but they're not. But they're resistant to compensating the hourly workers. And I guess are they viewing it as a cost savings? I don't understand. Can you shed any light onto why they're resistant to that aspect of the possible allowing them to forgive
No
those
one made
days?
any comments as to why they were in opposition. The only thing I can derive from the situation is opposition to unions and bargain labor. We're just offering this up insofar as the next contract leaves it open to negotiating the language in which hourly workers can negotiate that for themselves. It's just a stopgap measure to protect those paychecks so they can make the ends meet.
The only thing that I can think of is that they are thinking of it as a cost savings to the school district, but it's also, I had this discussion yesterday that if that's the case, you're incentivizing school districts to have snow days. And that's not a good thing, right? Just because, they call a snow day with an inch of snow on the ground, thinking in their minds that they're going to be saving money on those hourly workers. That's not right, and we have to figure that out for next winter. So, thank you.
I'm going to put my union hat on right now, and I'm going to tell you what it really is. You got a pair of people on the west side of the state, the DeVos family, and they do not like teachers. Their number one goal in life is to crush the union in the schools. The teachers have in their contract that they get paid for any snow days. Unfortunately, the line workers, cafeteria workers, janitors, they don't have that language. And so when Representative Shannon says it's just a cost savings to them if it's anything else. They do not care about the working men and women that provide education for our kids in the state of Michigan. That's it, flat and simple.
All right, we're going to get just a couple more questions here. We're running out of time, so we're not going to get to everybody's questions. I'm going to ask Mary Matuzek. I know I said that wrong, but if you could come up, we're going to let you ask a question. I've got a question that I'm going to ask in the interim, and it's for our local people here. Sterling Heights just passed a huge Parks and Rec millage, and they've done great things to bring young people in by having a skate park and a number of other great improvements. Warren Parks, I oftentimes have trouble taking my kids there because there's paint chips, there's rust, there's things that you just don't want your little kids around. And so for our county commissioners and for Lori, I would ask, what is your stance on improving Warren Parks?
Well, city parks really need help. When I was on the Tifa board, we started in with pocket parks along the Van Dyke corridor. The reality is, as at the county level, we have Metro Parks, we have Freedom Hill, we've got a couple of others. But I think at a local level, we need some input from either the council people or Lori about what we can do with the Parks and Recs here in the city of Warren. I think it's very, very important. We've got some nice parks, but they are in need of some serious help. Lori?
Well, I couldn't agree more with those comments. I think, like I said, I feel like every time I'm up here, I'm saying like the same thing over and over again. But like I said, this is my heart. This is part of the vision of Warren. And I think as far because Jeremy brought up the Sterling Heights parks and the new pavilion and stage that they put in. And I was honored to be there for the opening ceremony of that. And I was there, and I have to admit, I had some envy. You know, they had this big pavilion and a stage, and they had bands coming in, and then they had these like pop-up food trucks. So it was almost like an attraction, you know, almost like part of a downtown. And again, that was the vision that Sterling Heights had. They put a priority, and by the way, that was a millage, Parks and Rec millage that passed, and they had to work really hard to get that passed, guys. That barely passed in Sterling Heights. But they really put their heart out there, put their opinions on the line to say, look, this is a priority for us in Sterling Heights. If we want to be competitive in the region, if we want to bring in young families, young people, we have to invest in our parks. And I know that Councilman Bacamino, I know that he has a passion for our parks. He has a passion for our kids and our family, and a lot in Warren leadership does as well. So this is an issue that we are going to face in Warren. And like I said, we're going to have to, you know, we might have to put our money, so to speak, where our mouth is. And that's what they had to do in Sterling Heights to get this accomplished. And like I said, that was their vision, and they sold their vision to their constituents, and thankfully for them, it passed. So we might have to do something similar in Warren, where we have a new vision for our parks and really place that before you, the residents, for you to give feedback, for you to say, hey, this is what I see, this is what I want my parks to be. And the one thing I will say, the mayor's administration, they've started these beer festivals. I think it was at the park at 13 Orion. They had it, I think they've had 2 or 3 now, and they've been awesome. And it packed. There's wall-to-wall people. You can barely get around. So those are good first steps. And you know, like I said, we need to keep doing more things like that and doing some updates and really setting a vision for these parks.
Yeah, before.
Sorry.
Okay. Before I start, when Andy Levin was talking up here, I decided to look at the ground. And I'm listening to him, and I says, by God, if that ain't Sandy Levin. And I loved your dad. He was a beautiful man. But you're talking about parks in Sterling and Warren, wherever it is. We're right here in Center Line. I'm going to tell you something. We got some of the nicest looking parks in the county, right in this little city, and that's because of our city manager, Dennis Champagne, who stays on top of it. You can go all around, but come in Center Line, and they're packed. So say hello to your dad.
Can I just mention something about this, because I was on the city council when we did pass this Parks and Rec millage, and you guys, and I shouldn't say you guys, I'm part of Warren too, but Warren is ahead of the game. You have a community center right now. We're building our community center right now, but we're not going to have a water park like the beautiful water park that we have here in Warren. We in Sterling Heights actually contracts with Warren to get the residential rates. So we pay a certain amount of money every year to have our residents come into Warren to be able to use that. So then you also have an ice skating rink. We just started the ice skating rink this year. So you guys are well ahead of the game. And if you could get a small, and the reason I bring it up is that if you did get a millage put out there, it would be much smaller. I think it would be much smaller than what was necessary for Sterling Heights to put forward back in 2016. So that's all I wanted to say.
I just want to add something about this parks, because last June, and I don't know how many of you were in attendance, we blasted it on Facebook every minute. Every Thursday, last June 2018, Warren invited the residents to like a town hall to have the master plan written. Now we've waited 9 months already, no master plan. But in every one of those groups, every single time, the big thing that came up was parks, green space, walking places, biking places. I don't know what happened to it, but my real question is, is the $200 per year per insured vehicle due forever? I had to pay my car insurance last Friday for March till next March. And I looked at it, and every time I have to pay it, it goes up. So do we have to pay for every insured car in the state of Michigan $200 every year for the rest of our lives? And can any of that catastrophic fund that is supposed to pay for medical bills for people that don't have enough insurance if they get catastrophically hurt in a car wreck, I don't know what the number is. I've heard 22 billion, I've heard 36 billion, I've heard billions. Can any of that money ever be used for our infrastructure? And if it can't, can even the interest be used?
Boy, car insurance. I have 3 teen drivers in our household now. And we just added my 16-year-old daughter, and we got our bill here recently. And it's over $8,600 a year. So Lisa's going to take a second job. And if she heard me say that, she'd be kicking me in the backside. But it is a huge issue. And there are several areas that we're looking at to provide relief as it pertains to auto insurance rates. Stephanie Chang has introduced a package of bills similar to what was adopted in California. And they would use different criteria in scoring and determining rates, taking in your driving record and getting rid of things such as redlining, which they presently do. We had a presentation in our caucus, and what they showed was what they did was on Mack Avenue, I believe where Detroit is divided with Grosse Pointe Park, and they had identical requests for insurance rates with the car, with a single male, and a difference just being across the street of not more than 70 yards was over $3,000.
Oh my gosh.
So we know redlining exists, and there's legislation that's going to be introduced as it pertains to that. But you did ask about the Catastrophic Claims Fund. And Crane's had an article that I brought with me, and I'll pass it on to you. They've determined that we cannot use the fund, that actually it's your money, and that money should be returned to you. I believe it was in 1998, we had a rebate from the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Fund. And actually the first bill that I introduced here several weeks ago was that we should provide another rebate to you. We have over $25 billion in that fund today. When we did a rebate in 1998, we didn't even have $2 billion. And at that time you received $180 per vehicle. With $25 billion in that fund today, there's no reason why another rebate shouldn't be provided and return that money to you. Thank you.
I know we're running late, but I just had to get up because I just want you to think big and super local for a second. When we talk about our auto insurance, it's a state issue. It's 100%. It's nothing to do with us. If we passed Medicare for all, this problem would be solved. Not the redlining, but this whole catastrophic funding. It would be 100% solved. Not only that, all the other states that don't have the one good thing about Michigan's thing, which is if you are, God forbid, the one person out of 100,000 or whatever, who has that horrifying accident, and for life you need this care, you would get it in 50 states instead of one. And also the medical costs, which is what drives our auto insurance so crazy, will be stripped out of that equation. I'm telling you, and this is, I'm not going to say anything else. What you do between now and November of 2020 is incredibly consequential. Because if we can give, I'm going to focus on the state reps, sorry Paul. If we can give these state reps a majority in Lansing, and if you can give me a Democratic Senate and a Democratic President, we can change this country. Thank you.
All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up tonight. I'd like to once again thank Hometown Heroes for hosting us. I would like to thank all of our elected officials who participated tonight. Most importantly, I would like to thank all of you. Thanks for coming out on what turned out to be a really nice night. I don't know if you've looked outside, but the storms never came. I think it's important to remember that democracy isn't easy. Democracy isn't a spectator sport. Democracy is participation. Democracy is something you work hard at. This right here is democracy. All of you coming out tonight is democracy. And we need more democracy in America. Too many people in this area are suffering to get distracted by petty issues and small-minded politicians. There's work to be done, and we have outstanding elected representatives right here in Warren that want to do that work. We need more of these people all throughout the country. Because if we had people in elected offices in North Macomb, and in all the different areas throughout Michigan and in Washington, D.C., look at all the work that would be done. I want to take a minute to thank Christina Lodavisi for all the hard work she put in. I want to thank the rest of the officers of the Warren Area Democratic Club who work hard bringing democracy here to Warren. And I want to ask each of you to think about what you can do between now and 2020 to get more actively involved in our democracy and to make sure that we have more public servants and less politicians. These are public servants. We need more public servants and less politicians. And I'm going to ask our public servants to hang out for a few minutes as we wrap up so that if you have any individual questions, you can come up and ask them. And with that, we're going to close it down, and I thank each and every one of you for coming tonight. We have here an officer training that we want to announce real quick. Thank you for not letting me forget. If you're interested in running for local office, please take a flyer. We've got a candidate training coming up, so please sign up. And our meetings are every Monday at the Warren Elks Club at 7 o'clock. And also, as we're here in Hometown Heroes, I want to thank our veterans for their service. Thank you.